a lot of what we talk about tonight might even be stuff that you already know. I mean, I watched Laura's video in the challenge about time, and she had some awesome points. And I certainly don't want this to come across like I'm an expert at time. I'm still learning too. And I think that one thing about time management is that we can hear these strategies and we can know them, but then implementing them is just another thing. And so my hope is that as we walk through some of these practical tips, that you can pull, even just like 1 to 3 things out that you can take into this week, and then maybe next week you'll utilize 1 to 3 other things, or you implement those same tips. So that's just really why we're here. Also, if you were with us during the session that we did over Christmas, we talked about goal setting. And when Kristen and I were brainstorming kind of about what to talk about during this session, this kind of seemed like a good natural step. So we all have these goals that we set, and a big hurdle in achieving them is having the time to implement them. And so we just wanted to support you on how you can go from goal to implementation. And so that's really, why we're here. I'm going to share my screen a second. Okay, can everyone see that? One quote that I just really love, and again, something that I'm sure you've heard, but basically, if we don't take the time to design and plan our lives, we settle for the default. We settle for whatever happens. And as business builders, as moms, as wives, as just women, I don't think that that's what God intended for us, and I don't think that's what we really want for ourselves. We want to live intentional lives that let us live out what we love and what we enjoy. And so that's really another thing that I just want us to keep in mind as we go through this. So like Kristen said, my name is Kelly. I work at Brandsit Creative, and I'm a graphic designer and business coach. And I'd love to connect with you elsewhere as well, and always feel free to email me or contact me in the future. So let's dive in. So time is like everything else in our lives, and it's just this interesting thing where our mindsets have huge power over our time and our behavior. Because of the number of activities that we're involved in on a daily basis, it's easy to fall into this mindset that we don't have enough time, and we begin to circle through that story constantly. We say, if I wasn't working, I'd be able to focus on doTERRA full time. If I had more money, I could hire a babysitter, and I'd be able to have more time free from my kids, free from distractions. If I had more money, I would hire someone to do this activity for me. I'd have someone come fold my laundry. All those things that I think we can just fall into this cycle. And in Jeremiah, we read that the heart is deceitful above all things. And that's kind of just the first place to start. Instead of making excuses about why our time looks the way it does, why our behavior looks the way it does, I just want us to get honest and to acknowledge where we're wasting time, where we could be maximizing it better, and where we could be managing our behaviors better. So one of the interesting things is this law called Parkinsons Law. And essentially this is a principle that says our work expands to fit the time that we have. So one of the things that I find myself falling into is I say, if I had more time, I would do this. Well, the truth is, if I had more time, I might not even get any more done. And so if that's the case, how do I stop this limited time story from continuing? How do I begin to tell a new story and write this message in my life that says I have enough time to do everything that I want to do that's important for me? And this sounds too simple or too easy or just like that it wouldn't work, but one of the most powerful things that we do have the ability to do in our lives is to just stop. You can stop telling any story that you want. Sometimes it seems inevitable, but when you find yourself saying, I don't have enough time, stop yourself. I do have enough time. I have enough time for what I want to have enough time for. And like Kristen said, I'm just a big proponent of saying no to overwhelm. There isn't space in your life to be overwhelmed by how busy you are. There isn't any space to continue in this limited time story. And then also, one of the biggest things, and Kristen is so great about talking about gratitude, but one thing that can be hugely beneficial is that we're telling this story about that we're so busy. But what if we reframe it and begin to appreciate and have gratitude for why we're so busy? What activities are in our lives that are making them so full that we get to be busy? Some people aren't busy and would love to be busy. And although busy isn't productive and busy isn't always good, change that story and begin to say, I am so glad that I have 10 things I have to do today. I'm so glad that I have to go bring my kid to the doctor. I have to go to work. I have a job, all those things. Start from gratitude, because that always creates a positive foundation. And as we begin to tell a new story, we definitely want to have that foundation established. And so much like goal setting, when we want to write a new story, we have to evaluate where we are. We can't know where we're going until we know where we are. So one of the biggest things that, I would really encourage you to take away from this is to track your time. This is so hard to do because it just requires discipline, and I hate writing down, I just wasted another 30 minutes on Facebook not doing anything. But a lot of time is really about asking ourselves the hard questions, about being honest with ourselves. So I encourage you to, for this next week, track your time in 15-minute increments. Write down everything that you do all day, every 15 minutes. And I think you might be surprised, or at least I'm always surprised. I try to do this at least once a quarter just to kind of refine my time and how I'm using it. And it's always very eye-opening for me. If you don't want to commit to doing that, one easy way to just see how you're using your time is to check the battery usage on your phone. Obviously, your phone doesn't monitor everything you do, but like 1 week or 1 day last week when I checked my battery usage, I had like 2 hours on Instagram. Like, what was I even possibly doing? Like, how do I even have that kind of time? Like, that's just, so I don't know. I just can never believe where my time is going when I actually take the time to track it. And so I would encourage you to start there. And then another way that you can do this, and I do this every week in my bullet journal, is I track my key tasks. And this involves, this doesn't include like client work or business work necessarily. These are just the things that I want to do every day, no matter what. Things like taking supplements, doing my devotions, exercising, different things like that. And when you start tracking them, don't have it be like, okay, I'm tracking it, now I have to do it every day. Just continue on with your life as you would, and track your key tasks and see how often you're actually doing those things. Because a lot of times we might think we're doing them more often than we are. And this is just a good touch point to see how you're doing on the things that are most important to you in your own life. And with those key tasks, we should be intentional about our intensity. Our intensity must be purposely directed at things that really matter, and purposefully not directed at things that don't. And so, we're going to talk more about this throughout this presentation, but just really, what are you focusing on? Where is your time going? And tracking those things so that you actually know where your time is going. So let's write a new time story. One of the first things that I encourage you to do, and this is from Essentialism, the book Essentialism, which is a great read if you need one for your book list this year. But the key principle in this book is to do less better. And when you focus on doing less, you open yourself to do everything you do with more focus, with more intention, essentially to do it better. And I think that starts with be okay with saying no. Because every time you say yes, you're inadvertently saying no to something else. So make sure that your yeses are the best yes that you can say in your life. One easy way to do that is to just create fewer decisions. If you think about many successful people, they're take Steve Jobs or Mark Zuckerberg, they wear the same thing every day. A lot of people who are really healthy and whatever else you want to say, they eat the same meals every day, because as you eliminate that decision, you open up more mental energy, you have more freedom, more time, because you're not spending time on those decisions. One simple way that I do this in my own life, and it sounds cheesy, but every Sunday I plan out my outfits so that when the day comes, I don't have to think about it. If I have a meeting that day, I don't have to waste 30 minutes trying on clothes, because I'm trying to find something that I like and that I'll be comfortable in. So those are just like easy way. Create fewer decisions that you have to have each day. And then this phrase I heard from Nancy Ray. She's a photographer, and she always says, make decisions and then make them the right ones. And I used to be like really indecisive and just would second guess myself. And I have learned that I need to make decisions more quickly, not because, I mean, there are certainly decisions that require time and more thought, but as you make decisions quickly, you're able to move forward. You don't spend so much time in that decision making process. And then trust yourself, trust your gut, trust your intuition, trust your education and your learning and everything that you've built up so far, so that after you make a decision, it can be the right one and you can feel at peace. Down the road, you might encounter new knowledge that lets you redirect that decision or change it. But for now, make a decision and then make it the right one. And then this is like totally something that is not new, and you've probably seen it before, but for whatever reason, 6 months ago, my coach and I worked through the Eisenhower matrix together. And for whatever reason, it was just like hugely transformative for me. So I wanted to share it with you guys. And this graphic looks a little bit overwhelming, but essentially there's 4 quadrants in this matrix. You can see them all listed there. And often we fall in this urgent, important, simply because of the high urgency, the high important. This is often things that have deadlines, which is often why we fall here, because we run up against those deadlines. Like a while back, Kristen and I were talking about how, you know, she had her week plan, and then doTERRA announced a new promotion, and her whole week was taken over by following up with inactive leads, because now she had this urgent and important task to do. These things aren't necessarily good or bad. They're often, they can be either or. But with these things, these are just things that you often just do it. Don't waste time contemplating them necessarily. Do them well, but then move on from them once they're done. Urgent, not important tasks on the bottom left here are going to be your interruptions, your calls and emails, maybe your housework. These are tasks that, if possible, you really want to delegate the activities that fall here. These tasks in general are often important for others, but they're maybe not your highest priority. Email is a good example of this. You know, like it's important to the person that you respond to them, but maybe for your own business, that email isn't very important. Another good example is laundry. You know, it's really important that your kids have clean clothes, but beyond the like mere fact that you're caring for your children by doing that, laundry isn't necessarily helping you accomplish your goals. So when possible, it's awesome if you can delegate this or at least split it up. You know, like my husband and I make sure that we do this together so that neither one of us feel like our time is being totally robbed by laundry. In the top right, you have not urgent but important tasks, and this is where you want to spend most of your time. And these are often the hardest to actually dive into because they aren't urgent. We don't feel that necessity. We don't feel the laundry piling up here. It's not like that. But I mean, a really good example of this is health, exercise, and eating well. That's like the easiest thing to drop off if you're feeling really busy with other tasks. Self-care, self-development, income-producing activities such as following up with leads, those things all fall here. You know, they might not be urgent in the sense of like time, but these are definitely going to be urgent tasks for your income, urgent tasks for your overall health. I mean, you can only neglect your health for so long before you might feel consequences. And that would be an urgent thing, but not in the sense of time. So again, if possible, this is where you really want to focus. Not urgent and not important things are also things that really tend to suck up our time. They often are feel-good type of things, such as social media and television. They often require very little mental energy, so they're easy to fall into. And I definitely think that there can be a time and a place for these activities. I still watch television. I still enjoy these things. But I think we have to recognize that at times these things need to be dropped. If we have work that needs to be done, then it's probably not time to watch Netflix, no matter how good the show is or whatever. Reflect on these things and what they bring to your life. If they're bringing you immense joy, then figure out a way to incorporate them. But if they're not helping you move the needle at all, evaluate how much time you're willing to spend on them. One way that I do like to incorporate these things is by having them be like a reward, or after I complete it, income producing activity, I might take a break and spend some time on social media, or maybe while I eat lunch, I might watch a show or something. But these aren't going to be something that I do right away when I get up or when I start my day, because they're not the number one thing. And then going back to this list, and I will send this PowerPoint out. I still encourage you to take notes, but if you miss something, I will send it so you guys can all have it. And the final thing in doing less better, and we talked about this previously at the goal setting session, but multitasking is like basically a myth. On average, it takes you about 23 minutes to refocus your attention after you multitask or after you break up a task, which is quite a long time. So if possible, really focus on doing one task at a time if you can. I really like to batch my tasks. So this might be, you might call all of your leads on a Monday morning or on a Tuesday morning or whatever, but you would do those all in one span because that's where your mental energy is focused. They're the same type of activity. And so that's a great way to just really maximize your time by doing them all at once. Another technique with this for limiting multitasking is to use what's called the Pomodoro method. And this has, evolved since it originally started, but basically the basis of this technique is that you work for a focused amount of time. It's usually about like 25 to 50 minutes. And then once you complete that Pomodoro or that segment, then you get a break. And it's motivational because you know that break is coming. You know that if you work, you get a break. And all you have to get through is 25 minutes. 25 minutes, I can do this. And then you get a break. And then a lot of times people will go for like 3 to 4 segments and then take a longer break. So this is very common. Like you might do this 3 to 4 segments and then have lunch. And then in your afternoon, you might do this again. But just encouraging behaviors that are sustained for a period of time so that you're maximizing that time. Another element that I really believe that is a part of writing a new time story is just self-care and self-development. This is something that often goes when we feel swamped or we just don't feel like we have time. We don't often justify this because it feels like a pleasure, like a bath feels like a reward, or reading a book just doesn't feel like a necessity. And I would just really argue to challenge that belief. You can't pour from an empty cup. If you aren't inspired, you'll likely procrastinate and you'll just feel drained. You'll eventually might end up in burnout. And so sometimes the best thing that you can do for yourself is to take a break, to recharge, and then come back energized. And you might be shocked by how quickly you actually finish something after you take some time for self-care. This one is huge, and Kristen has talked about this a lot, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time here, but this is just going to be like one of the biggest things that you can do for your business is to create systems and automate things. One easy place that I encourage you all to start in your own businesses, because creating systems can be a big thing, but an easy place to start is create email, texting templates, just scripts that you use regularly in your business. Get those things written down. You can customize them once you know who you're talking to, but the general process or the general things will probably stay the same. Another great place to start is writing down the processes that happen over and over. So for example, when you enroll someone, which steps do you take every time you do this? And these are great in your business of MLM simply because as a builder, if you write these down, you can then easily give them to your builders and subsequently they can pass it on. And I know that you guys have a lot of these implemented and this is just a reminder, but as you grow on those foundational systems, you'll find yourself just saving a lot of time because your processes will all be in place, will be easy to refer to, and you'll know what comes next. Laura talked about this in her Facebook Live, but I can't emphasize this enough. And it was something that I totally resisted because I hate having a cluttered calendar. But until things are habitual, get them on your calendar. Honor your commitment to yourself like you would honor a commitment to someone else. Or if you're anything like me, I'm just so quick to cross out anything that I want to do and replace it with something for someone else. If you are determined to make exercise a habit, schedule that in your calendar and then communicate it to whoever needs to know. Tell your husband, I need you to watch the kids at this time. That's not negotiable. This is when I'm working out. Just make sure that anything that you want to happen, it's on your schedule. It has a time, because if it doesn't have a time, it's likely to get pushed away. This is probably the number one way that I manage my time is by using apps. And I know technology can be a huge burden. It can be a total time suck. The initial setting up of things often requires a lot of times, but I think it's so beneficial. I have reminders for everything. I use Evernote and Trello for project management, keeping things organized. Evernote is a note-taking app, and it's great because it's cloud-based. I can have it with me anywhere. I don't have to wait for Word to open. I don't know if you guys use Word, but I always think that program takes so long to open. It drives me nuts. But Evernote just has huge search capabilities, so it's just really easy to locate things, and you can group your notes by notebooks. So you might have a notebook for a class that's for new enrollees, for a class that's on adrenal health or whatever, and it's just easy to organize things and to find them and to maximize your time because you're staying organized essentially. I use Trello for project management. That might not be as crucial for you guys. I think you could probably do it in Evernote, but Trello is a great free app, and I use that mainly for lists and calendar-based items. Like I mentioned, utilizing reminders, timers. If you implement a Pomodoro technique, set a timer. Don't just say, I'm going to work for 25 minutes, because don't let yourself fudge on that time. Set an actual timer and work throughout the whole entire time. This next one is sometimes tricky and definitely brings up some resistance. I still have some resistance to this at times, especially because I often like to control things in my business. But outsourcing can be one of the biggest ways that you're going to free up your time. And it's easy to say that we can't afford it, and there are often cases where we really can't. But I challenge you to calculate your hourly rate based on how much you currently make, how many hours you spend working, which this will be easier to do after you track your time because you will know how much you're actually working. And then determine if it makes sense to hire someone. You know, outsourcing can look different for all of us. So for some of us, that might mean outsourcing someone who's going to clean our home. For others, this might mean I need help with my social media, so I'm going to have someone step in here. It might also be as simple as trading childcare with a friend, hiring a babysitter for 2 hours a day. I also added in utilize sites like Upwork. As a designer, I don't love Upwork, but as a business owner, it's a really great resource because you can find designers, photographers, any sort of creative. If you need a presentation made, there's just people like do anything on Upwork, but it tends to be super affordable. You can also find people from other countries, and many of them charge you like $4 an hour, and that's like an awesome wage. It still feels a little bit wrong and weird, but for them it's awesome, and for you it's also awesome. But those can just be interesting sites to explore, and especially as your business grows, they can be helpful. This is also one that might bring up some resistance. Getting up earlier never seems to get easier, I don't think. But for many of us, this, like, if we say we have limited time, getting up earlier is often like the only way that we can actually create more time. Like, yes, you can stay up later, but that's not always going to be sustainable. If you're like me, I always fall asleep on the couch. And so getting up earlier can just be one of the easiest solutions to create more time. It's also great. I love it because I can get up and I can do work and no one's emailing me, no one's stealing my focus. My dogs are still asleep. I don't have children, but my dogs are basically my kids. They don't bother me. I know little kids often get up early, but this might be a way that you can sneak away and get some minutes to yourself. Also, I challenge you, like, whenever I say I'm going to get up earlier, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to get up at 5, like 2 hours earlier than what I'm getting up right now. Or, but work in 5 to 10 minute increments. Like, I've slowly, over the past like month and a half, have been doing this, and now I'm at 5:45. And like a month ago, I didn't think I was ever going to see before 7 o'clock. Like, I didn't think it was possible. So just work in baby steps and push yourself, that even though it's so dark and cold in South Dakota, we can still get up. And then a few final reminders. When Kristen and I were talking about this, and she might be able to even expand on this more, but one of the biggest challenges, I think, in any business, not just MLMs, but any business where there's people, where there's any form of organization, we need to communicate with each other. And so sometimes your builder might be wanting you to reach a certain rank, might be wanting you to do a class or do a certain thing, but you're feeling so pressed for time, but your builder doesn't know that. Make sure that you have open lines of communication, that if you're feeling really swamped, maybe this person might step in and help you with this class, or you could tag team it. Hold each other accountable, because seriously, like, I'm so envious of your business, and that you guys have each other, and that you have this team, and that you get to draw strengths from each other, and you get to draw focus and even resources. Kristen is a wealth of resources and can share how things are done. Like any business owner always says, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. So communicate with each other, ask how you're doing it, share how you're doing something, so that other people can utilize what you've learned and maximize their time. Another big thing that I focus on, I think, on a daily basis is just a reminder that there are seasons in business. I mean, there are seasons in life too, but there are busy seasons. I mean, take tax season for an example. Accountants don't always have to work that much, but during a certain season, they have busier hours. The same is going to be true in your business, especially at the beginning. You're going to have more focused, intense time that's just required of you. And there isn't always going to be a way around that. And sometimes, as much as this word has become trendy, sometimes you're just in a season of hustle. And so when it seems like you're never going to have enough time, remind yourself that this season isn't going to last forever. And eventually I am going to break through and have a period of greater rest. But that rest only comes because of this hard work that I'm putting in right now. With that, I also, I feel weird giving any advice to moms because I'm not one, and I'm sure it's going to be harder than I can ever comprehend. But with that, just remember that there's seasons in life too. And if you're really busy, maybe this week your kid's going to watch more TV than you want them to watch, or they're going to be occupied with an iPad more than you're comfortable with. But this is a season. Next week you might have more space in your schedule and be able to spend more quality time. And with that same thing, I just want to jump down to this point a couple ahead, but give yourself grace that, I mean, we're not perfect. Our time management isn't ever going to be perfect. That's why we all came to this. That's why, even though we know these things and why we essentially know how to manage our time and manage our behaviors, we need to hear it again because we're human and we slip up, we fall into patterns. So just give yourself grace when your time management doesn't look exactly like you want it to look. Also, find a system that works for you. This too, I can't emphasize this enough. I resisted my own time management behaviors and tendencies for so long, and finally it was like, this is what works for me. This is the calendar system that works for me. This is the daily schedule that works for me. All those things. Try different things, find what works for you, and then feel confident in that process and make it work for you. And like we mentioned at the beginning, so much of time and our behavioral management begins in our mindset. Work on that daily. Say no to overwhelm daily. Believe that you have what it takes, that you're managing your time well, that you have the power to outline what your ideal day looks like and live that out. And then finally, and most importantly probably, is to keep your why and your goals in front of you. If you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, your time management is probably going to suck because you're not feeling motivated or driven by what you're doing. Make sure you know your goals, your action items, what you have to get done. A lot of times we procrastinate or we don't get things done because we aren't clear on what we're supposed to be doing. So if you have those goals and the action items and you're reviewing them daily, you'll have greater focus and you'll know what you need to do in order to accomplish what you want to accomplish. And yeah, that's all I have. I wanted to keep it succinct because ironically we're having a class about time management that's taking your time. And I know I kind of flew through some of those, but yeah, I'd love to open it up or to hear any questions or thoughts that you guys have about this. I'll stop sharing my screen now. There. Anyone have any initial things that you're like, yeah, I'm going to work on that item this week? Or even, I mean, everyone who's on this call is a builder, right? So what's one way that you can follow up with your builders this week to help them better manage their time?
For me, it's just encouraging my builders to make sure that they are scheduling in dedicated time and it's not an afterthought to do their work.
It's so true.
This is like a side job. I think we are still doing a full-time job and this on the side. And sometimes it becomes one of those important but not urgent tasks that gets pushed to the side until it becomes urgent. And then we have to hustle.
Yeah. I I sometimes feel like all of life becomes like that, and that's where it just is so important to be intentional.
My biggest thing is that I have to work on not getting myself overwhelmed because I do so much all the time and I like staying busy, but at the same time, I have a hard time going to bed a lot earlier. Like, I don't go to bed before midnight. When my baby, he's ready for bed for like at 7 o'clock at night. And I still stay up to try to get stuff done, but then I don't get up till he gets up in the morning, which is 9:15. So it's like I've already got time wasted
Right.
in a way. But it's like I get so worn out, so drugged down that I'm just like I don't do any of my own stuff for me. And then when I do, I feel bad. So that's like one thing I need to work on is stop overwhelming, getting myself too busy on stuff.
I think too, that's where focusing on priorities can be key. And I think sometimes too, acknowledging that we are human. So we have so many things going on. You have so many things to do. Well, maybe you have to say, I'm going to focus on doing these 3 things today. These are my most important tasks. And if I get them done, I'm going to feel so proud of myself. And I'm going to let myself relax with my husband. I'm going to let myself watch television because I did what I needed to do today. And I'm not going to have guilt about that.
I think the other biggest thing is when you're talking about tracking your time, where I relate with Robin, you put your kids to bed and then you've got 4 or 5 hours that feel glorious, like you can get all this done. And I would bet when I track my time this week that if there a morning, like tomorrow morning, I'll get up early. I get up at 7 on Wednesdays, but I'll go to bed earlier to do that. Anyway, I bet if I track my time from like 8 p.m. to midnight, so that's 5 hours, and like 7 a.m. to noon or whatever that would be, like another 5 hours, I guarantee I'm getting more done from like 7 a.m. to noon when you're like refreshed, you've slept, you've like let stress go away, than what I've actually gotten done from 8 to midnight. Because even though you're doing stuff, you're not as fast, you're not as sharp, you're maybe making mistakes, just stuff like that. So you're
Yeah, I
yawning.
completely agree. I used to always be like, well, I can just stay up and work at night. Why do I have to get up early and do it?
Right.
But
That's
I
exactly what I'm saying.
but I agree. I always feel better and get more done in the morning simply because your motivation is renewed. And yeah, I agree.
I was talking with Kelly this week because, we were Voxering because I had like so much going on, and I like knew that I needed self-care, and I usually try to do some self-care stuff just for myself on Sundays. My husband and I have talked about it, and like, so we try to have some space for him to do stuff and then some space for me to do stuff. And, so anyways, what I'm sharing is like I was getting burnt out because I haven't had that Sunday time since like prior to going to South Dakota because it's been so busy. And Kelly and I were talking, and she said you just have to really stop and evaluate, like, is it going to be more like, are you actually being productive right now? Or would you be more productive if you stopped, gave yourself some time, and then restarted feeling rejuvenated? And that made me think too, that might be good for you, Robin, just to like evaluate for yourself. Am I really being productive? Because for me, it's like I feel the list. And so I feel like I can't stop, like what you said. And then I'm like, well, am I actually doing these things? Or am I just like picking up all the random things around my house to make myself feel better and like going on the busy track? Like, or I'm not actually getting my priorities done. And, but I'm making myself feel like I'm busy and working towards my action steps. Whereas if I was just like taking care of myself, did some of that time, and then came back to do, the most urgent, most important, top priority things, I'd be more productive then.
Well, and when you list out the income producing activities for our business, I think that's important for new builders. Like when you list them out, it's contacting people, it's doing wellness consults and business overviews, and none of that happens from 9 p.m. to midnight. So you know that like I mean, I don't know. I could do a wellness consult with Laura Glanville at 10 o'clock at night, but probably not. We could do aerobic touches at 10 o'clock at night, but pretty much nothing else. So it just goes to show, like, you might get some of that, like, important, not urgent stuff done, but definitely not urgent and important.
Yeah.
I think like what you said too, Kristen, like it's so easy to feel validated by busyness.
Mm-hmm.
Like to feel, oh yeah, I'm getting so much done, when really busy and productive are two totally different things.
Yeah.
And we have to be cognizant of which one we're falling into.
Yeah. Like I watched like 5 Periscopes today on how to follow up on my leads. I got so much done. Just kidding. I've been in seasons of that before where I'm just like learning, but not actually implementing anything. So it's like busy feels good, but not actually moving the business forward.
Yeah, so true. Which there is a place for learning.
Yes,
but yeah, then it's maybe like watch one Periscope and do something.
Mm-hmm. I think as far as like the question you asked about talking with your builders about their own like time efficiency and stuff like that is such a good thing. I really loved what you said about like accountability, but also even like just being able to be real with one another. I think grace is such an important piece of our business. And I have just seen, because of my friendship with another girl who's not on our team, but she had almost hit, she hit platinum, was almost at diamond, and she now is like just barely hitting gold, but like she's felt so much pressure from her upline. And she has debated quitting the business because of the pressure that she receives. And so I think this time efficiency stuff is so good, but I love like what you're saying about like even talking with your builders from a place of like, hey, can we talk through this? Like, what does this look like for you? And how can we hold each other accountable, but how can we also communicate in those times where we may need to go like at a slower pace, or like we may need to not like completely step away, but like we need to like slow down our pace. And what does that look like for me to slow down my pace? Like I was talking with one of my leaders on my front line about this because a different leader on her team was going to be stepping away, but they didn't even know what that meant. And they hadn't like, it's so good. I think now looking at it from like where we are, like I'm like, oh well, yeah, it would be good to proactively instead have those conversations. Like if I get to a season in my life where I need to slow down, what would that look like, and how can we communicate through that and show grace to each other and still like build each other up and encourage each other, because there's so much beauty in the setup of doTERRA, but there's also potential for relationship blowups that can happen. And that's what's happened in my friend on a different team's, her life. Like it's so bad. She doesn't even want to do doTERRA because like the relationships are so terrible with her upline and some of her downline. So anyways, I think even for us to consider that as a team and how we can talk through situations like that is really good too.
Yeah, that's definitely a hard aspect of this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm not sure if we're ready to close up or not, but I just wanted to shout out to Kelly for taking time out of your day and your evening and your not urgent, not important time that you could be doing. You could be watching some epic show right now, and I just want to.
Well, Fixer Upper, it was just on. I mean,
what was?
Fixer Upper.
Fixer Upper. There you go. Never actually seen that show. You can all hate, but anyway, I don't know. Like, made a good choice there for myself, but anyway, the bottom line is that you are investing in our team, and it's when you invest in me, you invest in people below me and people's futures. And so I just want you to know that that's really important, and we appreciate it.
Oh, you guys are so nice. I hope it was beneficial, or at least just a good refresher of different ways that you can work on. I mean, ultimately, these are all managing yourself so that you can utilize your time, since we all have the same amount of time.
Yeah, thank you, Kelly. This was really good. It'll be some good food for thought.
Good.
You know, something to chew on. It certainly ties in with the values-based goals and things that I'm already trying to implement. So thank you.
Awesome. Awesome.
Thanks for joining, everyone.
Yes.
Yeah, we are super thankful for Kelly. She's such a resource for our team. And so, I mean, for sure, if you have any like continued conversation you'd like to facilitate, we can talk more about it soon here. I'll have a post that's going up on our Living Drop Educators page tomorrow about our team calls that we're going to start doing for February. So we'll have a team call on February 7th. And at the beginning, we're just going to share people's testimonies from oil experiences that we've had amongst our team. And there will be prizes for people that actually are intentional to write down some of those stories and then share them on the call. Because I want everybody to just come prepared and ready to share those sweet stories. And then the second half, we'll do like brainstorming through like real situations in our business that we're trying to focus on and process through. And maybe we'd like insight from other people and how they do it. Fresh perspective is always helpful. So that will be on the 7th at 9:00 again. And then the 21st, we're going to have another call with Kelly. So if you guys ever have like, more topics you'd like to talk about too, even suggested topics you'd like to hear on, you can direct message me or Kelly. And then, we'll look forward to another call with her soon. Thanks, Kelly.
Thanks for having me.
Hey,
Thanks
Kristen.
Yeah.
And I wanted to let you know that I won't be on next week because I'm having surgery done on the 7th.
Okay.
And I'm kind of out of